Life on Earth comes in many shapes and forms, and the possible forms of life in this universe are vast beyond your pitiful imagining. By virtue of you humans having a particular biology, you gawk and you stare whenever you encounter biology other than your own. Humans are built in a very structured and orderly way. Hundreds of different cell types, all built with a specific function in mind. Some of the largest divides in cell functions are found around the organs within the body. Humans are a composite of several organs, all designed for an express purpose to support a larger whole. In other words, people are a collection of dependent organisms, all contributing to the whole that is a human. But what if your organs weren't dependent on each other? What if your organs cooperated for the sake of an easier survival, each one having something they excel at, but were still self-sufficient creatures? Well, you might be surprised, but there are living creatures much like that. You might be asking me, how is that possible? And in order to explain, you need to understand why the Siphonophorae fascinate me. Back in the mid-1700s, a certain man by the name of Carl Linnaeus, when studying the Portuguese man-of-war, realized that this wasn't your typical jellyfish. In the process, Carl discovered a unique order he would name as Siphonopohorae. Now, if you've retained any of your high school biology education, you might be familiar with the name Carl Linnaeus. There's a reason for that, because our boy Carl is also known as the father of taxonomy, the creator of the system that your kind is so fond of using to explain the relationships of all Earth's creatures. The order of Siphonophore is of the same phylum as your typical jellyfish, and there's a good chance that you yourself have encountered Siphonophore before without realizing it, because without knowing the specifics, they are truly similar beings. But that doesn't make them any less interesting. See, Siphonophore are truly unique creatures when compared to the life found native to Earth. And in order to explain what a siphonophore is in a way that is more widely understood by you humans, I'm going to address its aspects one at a time. Now, I keep referring to them as siphonophorae, but the singular is a siphonophore. To put it broadly, a siphonophore is a colony. Now, this just means it's a collective of individuals working together for a common goal. This definition includes ants, bees, microbes, and even you humans. But if we want to put it in more narrow terms, a siphonophore is a polymorphic individual. Poly meaning many, morphic meaning specific shape, which can be roughly understood as a shape made from many. This is due to the fact that a single siphonophore is composed of many medusoid and polypoid zooids. Now that's a lot of fancy words, but this is fairly simple once you understand the terms. Medusoid and polypoid explained the shapes that the individuals take on, much like humanoid would be used to describe the shape of your incredibly self-centered species. Seriously, you name an entire body plan after your own species. It's a bit presumptuous. A medusoid is your typical jellyfish with that classic umbrella-like and undulating form, whereas a polypoid is more similar to a vase, with a cylindrical shape, usually with one end designed to attach to a surface and feeding tentacles on the other end, such as a sea anemone. And a zooid is just a classification saying that it is a living part of a greater whole. Keep these terms in mind, because they will be important-ish. Now that you have a rough idea of what a siphonophore consists of, let's meet the cast. There are 6 unique zooids that can make up a siphonophore, those being, in no particular order, pneumatophores, nectophores, bracts, gastrozooids, palpons, and gonophores. Pneumatophores are gas-filled zooids usually positioned at the front end of a siphonophore and help keep the colony upright, but they have potentially other functions depending on the specific species. Nectophores are medusoid zooids that are used for propulsion, which is pretty close to a typical jellyfish. Bracts are entirely unique to the siphonophore order. They act as a swim bladder would for a regular fish. They help keep the siphonophore from sinking, but they are not found in all species of siphonophore. Gastrozooids are a polypoid that help with the feeding of fellow zooids in the colony, and likewise palpons are considered reduced gastrozooids. Palpons serve a similar niche, but are more specialized, and possibly have the ability to sense chemicals or excrete waste. And finally, gonophores are specialized for reproduction. Now, you might be asking, why would there be a zooid that exists solely to function as a reproductive organ? Well, my counter to that is, why do so many of you act as if your sole function is to be a reproductive organ? See, a siphonophore is still only one creature. No matter if it's a nectophore or a gastrozooid, it all contains the same DNA. This is due to the fact that the entire colony grows from only a single egg. Think about that. Much like how in human bodies your cells differentiate so they can grow into different organs, a siphonophore's cells differentiate so they can grow into different organisms. Now, this is damn near paradoxical for humanity's classical view of biology. As we've just established, a single siphonophore has so many independent organisms, but they all exist to function as a single creature. This has a lot of implications and poses a lot of questions as to the evolution and development of complex organisms. Did primitive organs evolve as separate organisms which decided to work together? Well, that's hard to confirm as there is a lack of even remnant features distinct to independent organisms. An example being the unique DNA found in the mitochondria, not being the case for siphonophores as mentioned earlier. Hell, even ignoring that, there are these things called organelles, which are the organ equivalent for your cells, which would imply that it's just more efficient to have a specialized structure and not independent organisms working together. But if we assume the answer to the first question is yes, then why would it have not evolved away like with every other order on Earth? Is it just not detrimental enough to evolve it away? There are many cases where an animal retains certain features through evolution just because it doesn't cause enough problems to get rid of it, like the hind leg bones of whales or the human appendix. Or is this just an extreme example of what a symbiotic relationship could lead to? Well, it's possible. There are examples of creatures becoming dependent on each other, such as parasites or the microbes that live in your gut, but they aren't a part of the body to start with. And in a similar vein, ant queens can give birth to many variants of the same species with specialized abilities, but it's not quite the same, as well as a discussion for another day. There are many possibilities to what all this could represent. And frankly, it's not really possible with humanity's current technology to confirm anything. Most importantly, it gives an insight into just how massive the potential range of life can be, a step in the right direction to open up the possibilities humanity will inevitably face if you ever step off your minuscule rock. A reminder of what the true scope of creation offers in this universe, and just how narrow-minded humanity truly is when trying to speculate on what the universe holds. Ultimately, the Siphonophorae just fascinate me.